LGBTQIA+ activism has been raging in the past decade. This culture war is unlike anything we have seen in human history. It defies common sense logic and twists the biological understanding of human sexuality. How people look at sex, gender, and marriage has been radically altered in recent years. Even the most liberal and progressive persons who lived just 2 to 3 decades ago could never have imagined how the world has changed in this regard. LGBT activism is a cultural as well as a political agenda. Even skeptics are now convinced. How else do you account for its stunning success and society's rapid acceptance of LGBT values, especially among the millennials? Sadly, Christians are also included. The activism targets nations, corporations, schools, media, arts, and entertainment. Young adults, youths, and children are the primary targets. The activists understand that sexual behavior is malleable and it is easy to shape a young mind. The younger a person, the more malleable he or she is. Children have always been a target. However, indoctrination is usually carried out in a subversive manner. For example, by subtly changing the contents of children's sexuality education or sneaking in homosexual references in children's storybooks. Not so now. LGBT activists have become bolder and more blatant in pushing their agenda. Disney has publicly declared its agenda to indoctrinate children with LGBTQIA values. This news should alarm parents, conservatives, and Christians alike because Disney is the biggest and most powerful entertainment company in the world. On March 2022, the state of Florida enacted the Parental Rights in Education Bill. The bill, which is dubbed the Don't Say Gay Bill, blocks educators from discussing gender identity and sexual orientation with students in 3rd grade and below. Quickly, Disney came under pressure for not doing enough to fight Florida's Parental Rights in Education Bill. Disney responded by announcing that they had created a task force to create more LGBTQ content for children. A leaked video of Disney's internal meeting reveals much about their sinister agenda. Carrie Burke, Disney's corporate president and a mother of 1 transgender child and 1 pansexual child, say, "We have many LGBTQIA characters in our stories, and yet we don't have enough leads and narrative in which gay characters just get to be characters and not have to be about gay stories." She vowed more inclusivity in Disney's production by making at least 50% of its character LGBTQIA and racial minorities. Another Disney executive, Latoya Ravenel, says she was advancing a not at all secret gay agenda to insert queerness into children's animation. Parents must wake up. This is not a conspiracy theory or harmless agenda. It is a real and sinister agenda to capture the minds and shape the sexual mores of your children. You cannot afford to have your children grow up wrongly believing that all sexual lifestyles have the same moral equivalence. This is not just a moral issue. It is also a biblical issue. How then should parents, especially Christian parents, respond to such an overt agenda to indoctrinate their children? You can no longer stand passively by and do nothing Because Disney is coming after your children, parents must push back. If parents do not start pushing back, sooner or later, all the other companies that produce children's content will follow Disney's lead. From films to storybooks, your children will be inundated with LGBT content. You do not want your children to come under such insidious influence. So pull the plug off all Disney content unless you have time to go through every cartoon or animation to ensure that it is safe. Take this matter seriously. Do not sacrifice your children to LGBTQIA tainted entertainment. First, homosexual practices and the LGBTQIA+ agenda are signs of human depravity. When homosexual practices become widespread, it is a sign that the sin of humanity has reached full measure. Divine judgment will follow quickly. The destruction of the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah is a good example. The Lord told Abraham that the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great and their sin is very grave. What is this very grave sin? It is the sin of rampant homosexuality. The men of Sodom even wanted to forcibly have sex with two angels who appeared in the form of a man. The two cities were totally destroyed by fire and brimstones. It was an act of God's judgment for the sin of homosexuality. Homosexuality itself is a form of judgment. The Apostle Paul put it this way: God gave them up to dishonorable passions. For their women exchanged natural relations for those that are contrary to nature. And a man likewise gave up natural relations with women and were consumed with passion for one another. Men committing shameless acts with men and receiving in themselves due penalty for their error. I want to put a caveat here. Homosexuality is a complex issue for some people. I understand that there are believers who struggle with same-sex attraction. However, they do not act on their impulse. In such a case, it is not a sin. Second, the LGBT agenda is a political agenda to destabilize society. It is not just a cultural phenomenon, as many people suppose. The progressives and far-left liberals in the West are using the LGBT agenda to fundamentally remake society. Their goal is to replace the Judeo-Christian values that have been the foundation of Western societies. At the global level, the LGBT agenda is part of the global elite's bigger plan to gain control over nations, corporations, and individuals. It is a major part of the S or social component of the ESG or environmental, social and governance metrics, which also feature prominently in the global financial, banking, and economic systems. 10 years ago, Disney's ESG score was considered one of the worst. Now, the company is considered more inclusive, with plans to make 50% of its characters LGBTQIA+. Disney will soar in the ESG ranking. Already, it is one of the best in ESG scoring, right up there with the number one ranked Microsoft. When the ESG scorecard is fully implemented, any bank, business, or individuals that fail to meet a stipulated minimum score will be barred from participating in certain businesses and social activities. For example, getting a bank loan, securing a place in a prestigious university, or buying a property. In this way, the global elites, ultimately the one world government, will have effective control over nations, corporations, and individuals. Any person or entity that gets out of line with the rules will be punished.